Hello, world. Welcome to the Faceless Creatives. I'm your host, the Faceless Coder. Here on Faceless Creatives, we like to challenge you to focus on the content we're sharing and not the speaker. So let's dive into it. Today, we are going to live share local work environment and go through vibe coding, our AI harness, and long-running tasks. Now, that tool set in that industry itself is constantly evolving. And so we are hoping to get your insight and feedback. And hopefully you learn something from us. You're not going to learn something from you by you dropping some comments or just making fun of you. So let's dive into it. Here, I have a screenshot of the thing that I want to improve and then the prompt. So I actually ran this already. It's been running for, 40 minutes or so now. But let's kind of go through what's actually happening and let's dive into it. If I were to tell you what it's building on our platform on Dataspheres AI, you can create like pages and blog posts and things like that. This page actually was created from a deep research thing and live research. And then, just prompted it to create this page and kind of iterate on it. And I think that's kind of common. Like you do that on all the major platforms today. But I'll show you how it looks like in Dataspheres AI. But the thing I wanted to add to our platform was here on the left, this discuss button. It basically opens this modal and you can start a thread and use that page as context. But I want to deprecate that. And actually, instead of taking you to this other post user experience, it's going to take you to the original chat that was used to run deep research and create this page. And basically that chat will turn into a public group chat that others can see, but they can chime in because in this particular case, spec-driven development and vibe coding and AI harnesses and long-running tasks is something that just keeps changing, right? I don't think the industry has really figured out how to properly do this because there's just so many moving parts. And I think at the end of the video, I might talk a bit about how I would like to work together on some type of evaluation standard or benchmark methodology that we could all start to work towards to evaluate these spec systems and AI harness stuff, because according to this report, a lot of enterprises and a lot of folks are building these things in-house. Sure, some of these tools are good, but we can vibe code our own stuff, right? At the same time, I can see folks be challenged with traceability and proper guardrails when you're running this large sequence of events and ensuring code quality. And so there's a lot of challenges when you're doing stateful hierarchical validation testing that fails and needs to self-heal and fix itself based on what's happening at that particular time while you are out grabbing dinner with somebody or something. These things are just running in the background. So we're going to dive into all that in terms of how we're tackling it. But this is a write-up. This is a blog post. And so that's what it's doing. Right now, I ran this skills library. Let me just show you what it's doing. So this is a dashboard that's tracking the initiative. And so when I had prompted a client code and ran that skill, one of the first things it did was create a whole bunch of tasks. I'll just show you the trace graph. So if you go into this task list here, all of these things here has a whole ticket. It's kind of like a Jira thing, but I didn't want to use Jira. I just built this inside of my own system so I can fully control how to integrate with it. And the intake is basically the raw prompts that you enter. And from there, it will start to research the code base and research the public internet and start to synthesize some context around what are we trying to do. I added this special sauce myself, but kind of modeled it off a lead canvas. So it starts to break down what's the core problem statement and who's the target customer. Then it starts to evaluate what's the value proposition and start to spec out the underlying solution. Another thing it will do is once it has some solution, it starts identifying its desired outcomes, starts mapping out some user journeys, some success metrics, and the final outcome that we're trying to see. I fed it the screenshot. It went back and forth with me for a little and collected some information and then created those tickets. I had to approve it. And then once I approve it and greenlight it, it's off to the races. So let me get back to what I mean. Created the desired outcomes and then creates a whole bunch of epics, and each epics have these different tasks. The tasks themselves have validation criteria that is supposed to adversarially review the task content. You could actually pin one of these nodes so that you can scroll through the whole surface area. Through this front matter convention, it's basically tracking the whole chain. So for this task, and if you see here, the dashboard right now is at 43% completion. As it's running, it has this whole context chain so that it never forgets the outcomes that it's trying to drive and some of the original research and the original prompt. You get that whole ancestry in the context. I think it's debatable if you're getting diminishing returns or just getting context rot from so much content in there. But I feel like if it's good context, it will pan out in our favors. I've been running this tool for a year now and just kind of build everything. I wanted to build the feature itself, talk a little bit about Dataspheres AI, which is the platform we're building here with the faceless creatives. And then anything that you see that looks interesting, whether it's the actual Dataspheres AI platform or this all-day SDD skill that is creating this whole task list and orchestrating it and then building it and then tracking status as it goes. And then if the validation criteria fails, it actually can update these tickets here in real time and also re-strategize if it fails the acceptance test criteria. And you can see here that I'm running this in dev. So as it's iterating on code, a server might crash. As I'm demoing this, and then boom, see there, it's back up. So if we have time in the video, I might just show you my local dev setup because I basically run our Claude Code sessions on a desktop PC in my basement that's just up and running all the time. And then on that machine in the basement, it is running Docker and running a whole bunch of different apps and services that I tunnel to Cloudflare and to a subdomain. I have all these dev environments set up. I can vibe code against them. I can do it on my phone. I can do it on my MacBook. I can do it on the go. And all this stuff is just running on the background all the time. It's not only running the chat session, but it's running the actual application so that I can test it also while it's building. Anyways, all right, so let me get back to what I wanted to show you. So this is the dashboard. This is status tracking. As it kind of goes through the validation criteria, what it does is it really just iterates on each task. So this is a task list. And then it pulls in that whole chain. As you can see, it's on task 6 right now. So, it's about almost halfway. It says 43%. And it has this whole traceability matrix where as it goes through the validation criteria, here's the API contract. This is the front matter that I was talking about where it's able to do that whole tracing. And then it previews more front matter. This is a convention that is in the skill that tells the system to basically add these things like a timestamp. It's like a journal entry for future OMs. When they come to this file, it'll have a little breadcrumb, some notes on what's the purpose of this, what are some of the dependencies, and then some of that traceability that I was talking about. It is also supposed to add different code comments and cite the specs and stuff like that. This keeps a log of what it validated into this ticket. And so this thing is just called artifacts. And the artifacts actually can be more than code. Maybe in another video, I might show how you can use this for other workflows. I've used this to create video or images, a slide of images or something like that. So basically the artifacts could be more than code snippets. It could be more or less anything that you need to go through a workflow, validate it, and then track what it generated. I think one of the biggest challenges in doing this whole vibe coding, spec-driven development, AI stuff at scale is making sure that the final output is what you originally intended it to be and that it did it at scale, hallucinate a bunch of stuff, or lose focus of the original vision. Because I think there's a lot of drift that happens between all these different tool sets that I've seen. And so that's why I just started building it myself because we iterate on that. I would love for you to try it and give me some feedback on it. But I think ultimately for us to all really validate these things, we need to come up with some type of industry standard to really benchmark and evaluate these harness systems, these spec kit things, just almost like an evaluation of your environment itself, because it's not always apples to apples. Once we start saying oh, I vibe coded or I AI generated this or that, or, creating these agents to do this and that. It's just so high level that could mean anything at this point. If we came up with a convention that had manifest of the tools you use, the operating system, the version of the LLM, the version of, let's say you were using Hermes or something, you're using OpenRouter or you were using Cursor or Cloud Code and what version, all that stuff, right? kind of be part of the environment manifest? And then how did you set your context? All this type of stuff. Anyways, that's a separate video that I'm gonna do. I guess I get a little excited. All right, I can't really test out the results. So hopefully in a follow-up video, I can demo what it did, but I think this is going to take maybe an hour or two. It might run all night. I'm not really sure. It just depends, right, on how much variance you give it. But the idea, and look, I already took away the discuss button because it's going to add a new button for the group chat. Did I show you all the group chat? Let me just pull that up so it's handy. So here's the chat that I originally started prompting it and had it research a bunch of stuff. And when it did that research, let me pull up the page that actually has the research content. I think this is it right here. So yeah, you can do this on almost anything, right? Like you can prompt this system and actually go to the chat. When I had told it to run research on Spec-Driven Development, vibe coding, AI harnesses, it comes up with a bunch of queries, searches the web. There's a lot of platforms that could do this. I feel like this is fairly standard, but I really like the way that we're doing it here. Changes a bunch of the images and is just really transparent of what it does. All this content goes into what's called your Datasphere, and all of it gets stored as embeddings. And the more you work within this private workspace known as the Datasphere, which you can do a lot of stuff. I'm going to do like a bunch of videos going through all the different features, but I'm waiting to see what kind of comments I get, and then we'll dive into that because I really view Dataspheres AI as this everything platform. It can do literally so much. But anyway, so yeah, it can do all this type of research. And so all this stuff is context into the chat. And the chat is giving me a response. And then I told it to create that page that you saw a few minutes ago. And the idea that I have here is that once you have this page, obviously the industry is going to keep evolving. So I want the conversation to evolve with it. And I want to associate that conversation with the page. And so you as a subscriber can join it as a group chat. And in the chat, we already have a feature in our system where in these AI chats, you add people to it. And then multiple people can contribute and run AI tasks if you're part of the Datasphere. So, this should be done by later tonight. So I'll do another video on that. But yeah, I'm excited for that. So when that's ready, I'll let you know. Maybe really quick, I can link the architecture and the skill that's powering this. So here we have what's called RE Day Skills, which is just a bunch of Gil MDs that have a RESTful interface into Dataspheres AI. And one of the skills is this all day STD skill that does that spec-driven thing that I was telling you about. And so maybe just a recap. When it does this, it creates a board. Let me just double check really quick. This vlog is just really raw, right? I'm not trying to oversell anything. I'm just telling you how it is. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I shot this thing and everything will be perfect. But yeah, so it creates a Trello Kanban type of board, right? And before it does that, it will spec all this out. You can review it first. And then it has a link here that is the companion to that tracker board. So this is the raw board. And then this is a tracker. You can get a summary of what's going on in real time. This is fitting, right? And then as it's being updated, you can see what's going on. Another thing I actually haven't showed you is that at the bottom of this, there's activity feed. So as it's going through that ticket, there's a commenting feature. And sometimes you can see here, it's running playwright tests and it can take screenshots and then upload the screenshot to the ticket. There's a lot of stuff that this thing is doing. So, I really hope that this is something you want to just try for yourself. But yeah, so the way it works, you need to check out the repo. There's instructions here. So you actually have to have an account on Dataspheres AI. There's a 7-day trial. The lowest account is $10 a month. However, even in the free trial, you can get an API key, and most of the heavy lifting, right, is being done by, at least for this type of operation, it's being done in your IDE. So I'm using Cloud Code. And so all that costs when we charge $10, that's really $10 usage credit. And so as you do like AI tasks, it's just pulling from your usage credits. But I don't even think that like most of your credits are going to be really used like that because you're running this in your IDE. So yeah, your IDE is doing the heavy lifting. Now on the platform, this is a large number of skills and REST APIs, and some of those APIs will invoke a AI task that has compute and will use your usage credits depending on what it is. But like I said, for at least this exercise, I don't really think it's going to cost you a lot of money, if any. I would love if you were to use the platform. It can do a lot. Let me just kind of give you a quick preview. You can chat with it, do all types of research. We have these workflows, which are decision trees that you can customize and create your own. But basically, is a thing that gets attached to a chat. And then it starts to flip the script back onto you and it interviews you and keeps you focused on what you're trying to do, but also can automate things on the platform that you probably are not aware of because there's just so much you can do. So, for example, a big thing within our platform is to give you tools, but then also give you the controls so that you're always in the driver's seat. You can automate so many things, but it's not really about blindly automating and not using your brain. We are using these AI tools sometimes to our detriment and not doing the critical thinking that really separates this project from that project. But anyway, so you can create pages like blog posts or research reports, stuff like that, and then you can make them public and SEO friendly. You can create presentation decks like Canva, but native into our platform. We have a newsletter feature that's really awesome. You can personalize it and attach tasks and web searches in real time. And it's really advanced. So I'll have to do a separate video on that. We created this platform for academics and researchers. We have a couple of research projects on here already. And so we'll have to get into that in the future video. You can create courses on here. You can do private journaling. We have a data set feature, which is like Excel or Airtable. You can do the web searches, like I was saying. These knowledge graphs are really powerful. You can set these different node types that can invoke actions and run on a schedule. So that's a really powerful feature that I'll show some of the time. I really love how the tasks get updated and I'm getting these updates on the platform as it's making progress. Forms are like surveys and they're multimodal. You can answer a survey with your voice or upload a video and they answer to the survey. You can build dashboards or analysis, live gallery. I mean, honestly, I can keep going on and on. The planning stuff that you saw, that's not limited to the spec-driven development. It's just that as a coincidence, I put the work in to create this dynamic column system with status tracking and a lot of rich metadata and content, and then made an orchestration layer on top of all that. That's a really powerful feature, even outside of coding is my point. Like I said, it is a lot. So that $10 a month, you're getting a lot for that. And it's all usage based. So I really invite you to come try that. And there's a 7-day trial. If you were to run the spec-driven all day STD skill, you would really spend like close to zero because you're running that in the IDE. You're just signing up to get the API key. Okay, so that is that. I'll link the actual architecture of the spec-driven system, but I just want to show it to you really quick, super high level. Basically, when you run the skill and you prompt it and you invoke / all day STD, what it's going to do is start collecting the prompts that you're taking and it's going to start doing some research on your code base and spec out the task list. And it's going to iterate on that quite a bit, depending on how big your request is. From there, it's going to start publishing these tasks into your own board. And each board is what's called a plan mode. And so these are like other initiatives that I've been running over the past 2 years. But dynamically, when you tell what to do, it knows that you're doing a new initiative and it creates a new plan, basically. So in that plan, these are all your tasks. And in the chat, it will preview to me that board and run this stuff in the background for research. And then I'll go back and forth with it. And then I'm like, okay, cool, awesome, green light, go. That's when it starts to initiate the Ralph loop. And then it's just going. So it's been running for 2 hours. So I want to go back to the architecture to see if there's anything to loop you in on before I end the video, because I know this is already pretty long. That Ralph loop is executing the task and they're gated. If you don't add proper gates between the task, that's when you start to get some real spec drift and hallucination. And then it gets really challenging to enforce templates in the front matter. And then it has in the task list that validation criteria. So that's how it's adversarially doing some of that gatekeeping. And then it's instructed to keep the dashboard up to date. So these are different hooks that are enforcing the criteria and then enforcing the templating. And then there's different rules inside the skills MD that is making it behave the way I want it to behave. And then it starts publishing updates into the dashboard. And then it kind of iterates on this because if it runs into an error, it's also instructed to investigate the error and fix it. We're going to just be raw and authentic and vulnerable, and we'll get some things wrong, but we're not going to oversell anything. We're more grounded in reality, and we're using these tools every day, working with hundreds of engineers across different projects. And I think what's happening in the industry is much different than all of the hype that you see and all the clickbait that you see across the internet, which I feel like that's a whole other video that I should do. But, hopefully I can be a resource to you and hopefully you can be a resource to me because we need to navigate this new space together. And we need to be more real about what's happening. A lot of the critical thinking is just being lost and it's not a good thing. All right, you can give this a read through and then determine for yourself what you like and don't like. And I'd love to hear it. I showed you the artifacts, the self-improvement concept. Yeah, so that's awesome. Okay, cool. So hopefully you're able to get started. If you want to try this out, the README should get you to where you need to get to. So I'll link all that in the description. And yeah, when this feature is done, I'll do another video. And maybe in that video, I can work on that eval and benchmarking thing because I want to work with a community of developers on speccing out the eval system because yeah, there's just so many harness setups or vibe coding setups or spec-driven approaches. That's good. I think that will help push the industry forward. But at the same time, none of us really know how to really evaluate these systems in a consistent manner. And so I think we need to start coming up with that criteria and then that manifesting Mel was talking about. So I'll take a stab at it for the next video and hopefully be able to show you the results of what this thing created. I'm confident that it's going to deliver. It'll definitely build and I'll have it functional. But in terms of really good software behind the scenes, that's what I mean. Doing quality check is also really challenging. We can dive into stuff like that. The actual content here of this report is going to be really interesting. So I'll publish this too, because this isn't fake data. All the research is cited down here. And then all the citations are in line, the document as well. So it's my way to prove that it's not hallucinating. This is some real content, some real data that's analyzing the different tools around for harnesses and spec-driven stuff. And there's open source things, the commercial stuff. So it has a lot of insightful things here. I think the content itself would be interesting. In the next video, once the feature is done, this will be published. And then we can also have a live chat experience to continue the conversation there also. And then if you leave comments, I will be more than happy to address them. Even if you roast me, I'll use an AI to roast you back. Hope you liked the video. This is the Faceless Coder with the Faceless Creatives. Video 1. We're out. Like and subscribe, please. Peace.